Getting right into prep for Georgia Tech, and obviously, they're coming off a big win where they rallied and played some really good football. And in terms of your questions and injury report, I'll do the best I can to answer them. But we're having several guys still evaluated. So, that being said, questions.
Mario, you spoke about being disappointed this morning in the team's physicality.
Yes.
The physicality seemed to be there, or was there at Texas A&M. Do you see the same, level now? What's the difference between then and now?
I see it in spurts. I see it from some guys and others that have to keep improving it. It's our job to keep coaching them so it gets better, because physicality is mentality and it's technique. It's both, and you can't have it without having just one of those aspects. So, and we're going to keep driving it home. At this time of year when you're playing, important football games, physicality's got to show. It's got to show it big from the first quarter to the end.
So could that be more mentality, I would think, this time
It's
around?
both.
Is that something that can be developed or taught, or is it kind of an innate trait that players either
It will
have?
be both also. You want guys that naturally are physical and throw their bodies around. You want guys that play with reckless abandon as it relates to themselves. Spilling a block is spilling a block, getting underneath it, right? And making sure that thing is launched and pressed outside. Boxing is boxing, right? When I say boxing a block, making sure it stays within the box. And when you do, you've got to be very physical. At linebacker, get downhill, you got to get your hands on linemen. You got to press and butt and separate, shed blocks and make plays. And all that requires physicality and mentality, combination of everything from the weight room in the off season to natural ability, innate ability to do that again and again and again, especially when it hurts, when your body's tired, right? It's always been a trademark of the great players here, both on offense and defense. So that's what we're working to get to from a development standpoint and talent acquisition standpoint.
Just the status of Tyler Van Dyke and also Jalen Rivers, whatever you can tell us about this.
Yeah, Tyler, we're going to evaluate Tyler as the week goes on. Probably in the same spot we were a week ago, but I would say he's better than he was a week ago at this time. Jalen's going to be under further evaluation. We won't know yet.
What if Tyler can't go this coming week? I guess, do you know for sure whether it be Jake or Jakari on Saturday? And if you don't, what do you want to see from them over the next few days?
We'll evaluate that as it comes. Right now all the focus is on getting Tyler well. Both Jake has had his really good moments during the year. He's had his rough moments. Jakari got some time. He's had his good moments, and he's had his learning moments as well. So we'll evaluate that, and we'll probably keep that under wraps for a bit until we know more about Tyler.
How do you keep Jake's confidence up, or what can you do?
By being real with him, being honest. I don't think you sugarcoat anything. The greatest form of respect for a player, I would always think, is to be honest with them, be direct with them, and then provide a path for betterment, a path for improvement. Go set goals for them, and then coach them hard, coach them fair, and find a way to get them to play to the best of their ability.
How do you feel like Jakari's handling the moment, just being thrust into kind of a bigger role on Saturday? How did he do handling that moment?
Oh, I think he did well. I don't think it was too big for him. I mean, he's was a 4-year starter, and I think he won more games in the state of Georgia than just about any quarterback there. So I think all those guys, they're competitors. I don't think they shy away from it.
Well, each of your quarterbacks have their own strengths, obviously. You try to prepare all of them, but at what point do you sort of say, okay, this is the guy we're going with, and this is our game plan, so that you can get ready to play a game on Saturday?
As soon as possible. You always do. Do some of the things that, because of our injury situation, do you keep something under wraps? It's better for the program that we do, right? Because where we are in terms of injuries and having to shuffle things around, we gain nothing by putting out there what we're going to go with, right? Let opponents prepare for everything so we can go from there. That's just being honest.
Talk Saturday after the game about how angry you were. What sort of response have you seen from the players? Has there been kind of a similar reaction?
We'll see on tomorrow's practice, right? I mean, talk is talk, and the bottom line is you got to show up and do the work. So the expectation is that guys show up prepared, ready to work, ready to get after it. We're very blunt, very honest, without being discouraging. We don't believe in that, but again, the greatest form of respect is truth and honesty, and you go at it right directly, right between the eyes, things that we have to improve upon. And it starts with coaching. I always say that when we take this, we take it together. There's no separation. There's no finger pointing or BS or nonsense. Building a program is hard. And to build it the right way, you've got to have when you have tough moments, you got to have tough responses. So that's what we're working on.
It seems like the team's kind of, I think about the North Carolina game about a month ago, you guys were right there with them. And then obviously on Saturday, a lot rougher. It seems like the team kind of regressed in some aspects. Have you seen that at all?
I think on Saturday we regressed. You know, in terms of a team, we've had some ups, we've had some downs. Saturday was a rough day. That's the best way I can put it.
All right, what's the difference as far as what you can learn about a team, you know, during camp versus, you know, actually getting heat of the moment in ball games, maybe personality-wise about players that you learn that's just different from practice and all the other preparation?
Sure, in camp you learn who gives you the best chance because of what they've shown you. Guys that have earned the right to go out there because they understand what we're trying to do, how to do it, and why we're doing it that way, and they do it hard or better than the next guy. And then when the lights come on, you find out what exactly, you know, a guy can or cannot do. You know, sometimes the moment gets too big for a guy. Sometimes they just, it's the opposite. Sometimes they turn around and it makes them go even better and harder. So there's nothing like the truth of the tape on game day. That will always tell the truth. And I think that's always important. Take a deep dive into analysis, individual analysis of game day tape, right? Who's doing well, who's not doing well. Find a path for correction, right? A path for technique and fundamentals. Eye discipline, things to show up better, you know? But I guess to put it bluntly, yeah, on game day, it'll show.
And in terms of technique and what you're teaching guys, and what you spend all that time in the spring and summer spending with them to get them to play the way you want, how much of that do you see where they're playing with the technique and everything that you're taught that you?
I think some guys have the capabilities physically, the power, the hips, the ankle flexibility, the length, the explosiveness to do it and do it on a fairly consistent basis, and some are a work in progress, you know? It is the body types that we have, we're completely immersed in helping them develop and get better. And some could do it much better than others can. And some got a long ways to go to be able to do that at the level to play competitive Power 5 football.
Mario, you talked, you know, last week especially, you knew that there's a lot of work to do when you got here. I guess what were the expectations that you had when you arrived here last year? And I guess where do you feel like you guys have met those expectations, and what do you think maybe you guys?
Oh, that's for a long sit down. We'll talk about that after the season. I knew there was work. You know, I said it a million times, I'll say it again. We left some really, really established places that we worked our butts off to make established. Okay? And we left it knowing that Miami had lost its way, and we were going to do whatever necessary to get it back on track, because when Miami's done the right way, Miami, in my opinion, will always be the best. So that's why we're here. We're not shying away from that. We're not shying away from the lumps. You take them, you eat them, you grow, you learn, and you go. You know, but there's no head faking. There's no, you know, sugarcoating or BS. And you got to work, man. You know, got to work it into reality.
Go ahead,
Okay, the offensive struggles of going, I guess, 3 consecutive games with no touchdowns. Have you ever been through anything like that? And how do you remedy that?
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. So, got to work. Got to work.
Is the future of the program? We're at the game on Saturday. I know you can't mention names, but just kind of getting a look at them, being in the room with them, just, you know, how much, I guess, does that encourage you? And then, you know, just, I guess, your message to those kids. It was kind of a pretty elite group of prospects over there.
It's simple, you know. I think they all see it, you know. The future is awesome. Just got to work it into reality, you know. And especially first years, they come with lumps sometimes. You know, remember, every place is left in a certain state, right? There's a certain level of whatever that a place is in when there's a restart, you know, a reset. And yeah, we're super excited about the guys that are developing, and we're super excited about the guys that are coming in, because that's, you know, it's what Miami should look like, and that's what Miami's going to look like.
Coach, you talked a lot about laying the foundation and things like that, maybe behind the scenes. Can you share a couple of those things that, you know, not necessarily with results or whatnot, but maybe behind the scenes things that you're either pleased with progress or things that are going foundation-wise?
I think we're creating much better habits off the field. It starts with accountability as it relates to class, tutoring appointments, right? All your academic appointments, as it relates to how you're living, you know, away from the football field, and how you're, you know, conducting yourself. I think there's a lot of progress in that, you know, because it's all that leads to being a better football player, you know. And it's important. You know, we should have an elite academic status and GPA every single year. We should be, you know, and that had fallen by the wayside. Well, now it's climbing back up, and Jessica Lopez, who I can't, you know, I have to mention her. She's been incredibly instrumental in coming in and doing a great job with that. So that's one of a gazillion ways in terms of the things that we do from an accountability standpoint, because it should be done like you would want in your very own household, the same standards and principles, right? Of being a great person, of doing right by others, of having elite habits. So, but that's definitely for another sit down. It's a long, long time. You know.
Coach, the big plays given up in the last game, I mean, what do you attest to that, and how do you fix it?
First one, we should have gotten hands. You know, everybody wants to point at DJ Ivey. That's not on him. You know, safety should have gotten hands on that guy and rerouted him. But of course, you watch the corner trailing a guy for a big touchdown, and everybody wants to point at him. That's not fair. So that one could have been very easily, you know, prevented. One after that, I believe we had a penalty on an interception in the end zone. Counter. Bottom line is, when you box it in like that, you've got to come up and make a tackle. We didn't make a tackle. You know, and we didn't help ourselves by we provided shorter fields. You know, we were 3 and out, had a short punt, right? We shanked one. We got to coach the whole thing better, and we got to play it better, man. You know, it was not good. It was not good.
About incoming recruits, how much does competition, you've been on some talented teams, how much does competition contribute to development?
It's everything. It's everything. You know, you never want entitlement in your program. You know, like, oh, I get to play because so-and-so left. It doesn't work that way. Not if you're going to be really good, right? If you want to do this for a living, the next time when you're in an NFL room, well, you don't go back to your dorm and, you know, go have your meal card swiped to get your food and whatnot. You're either sent home or you're part of the team, right? Real competition. There's real consequences. So I think competition brings the best or the worst out of everybody. That's the reality, you know. And in my opinion, you got to stack your roster a certain way so that competition is a welcome thing. Competition can never be seen as a threatening thing. Competition makes the entire organization, the entire place better. You know, and that's why when you are recruiting, you want to make sure that that you're establishing that very clearly, right? So that, you know, guys aren't looking for, hey, I'm going to come and be the man. No, you're going to come in to compete. You know, you have to be very honest with guys.
How do you, I guess, how do you kind of match energy with a team? Like Georgia Tech, they had a comeback win. I'm sure they're energized. You guys had a rough time on Saturday. How do you make sure you can kind of match that energy, you know, in a road game like this?
With reality, bottom line. You know, we've done a good job playing on the road in conference, and we got to go do it against a team that played really well this past week. It's got some guys coming off of injury. I know they've got a big whiteout night as well, or afternoon prepared for them. So the environment will be great. They got really good players, and our guys know that. So let's get to practice and practice to the best of our abilities.
Okay, just the mental and emotional bounce back after a game like that, for the players, how difficult is that, and how do you, as coaches, help them in your...
Shake it off. Shake it off. It's time to go. The ball's going to be placed in the tee at 3:30 on Saturday, so there is no time to wallow in that. Football is not, you know, time waits on nobody when it comes to football. So reality is we have an opportunity, a tremendous opportunity to get better. And we've shown that we've been able to do that this season a couple different times to bounce back and play really, really well. The tape right there told us enough. You know what the tape did? Told us the truth, that we're not playing to the best of our ability, and we got to get better, and we have to develop a whole lot better to make sure we have the outcome that we want. So that right there should be more than enough motivation to go out and practice great and play as hard as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
see from Jakari Brown, who ended up getting, I'm sure, more work than you guys expected?
He was tough, played tough. The moment wasn't too big for Jakari. I thought he obviously did some really good things in the game, and obviously tough point to go into the game, obviously after adversity hits, and obviously Tyler goes down, but he responded. He's such a positive kid. He wants more and more on his plate. We've got to continue to find ways, because you do see the value that he does bring us out there, especially using his traits that he's given with.
It's been kind of a tough go at times for Jake. What would you like to see from him for the next few weeks to bounce back?
Yeah, Jake. Jake's had some good moments, some tough moments, and obviously, for us, it's about reinstilling that confidence back in himself. It's like a batter, right? You go on a string of strikeouts or whatever. You just got to get back in rhythm. You got to get back your confidence, get back in rhythm, and that's the thing we got to remind Jake. And got tremendous confidence in him, and unfortunately, some things haven't gone his way. But we got to respond. We got to respond as an overall team. That's everyone involved. That's including myself. And so we look forward to doing that as we continue to move forward.
Josh, I know you guys are hoping Tyler's healthy enough to play on Saturday, but if he's not, what do you want to see from Jake and Jakari this week as they prepare for this game? Determine who will start on Saturday.
I think just overall as an offense, we just got to be resilient, and that's overall collectively as a group, regardless of what quarterback is in. We can't have highs and lows depending on who's the quarterback, and I think we've been affected a little bit by that. I don't think we've been that type of team that has responded from adversity. And so either quarterback, obviously we're going to prepare both quarterbacks as we always do each and every week, but we've got to have everyone around them have the utmost confidence in them, as well as our quarterbacks have the utmost confidence in everyone around them.
Is there anything particular you want to see from them just in practice?
Just continue to take the next step forward, focus on what we have presently. Obviously, tough loss. There's no way around it, right? That's not the expectations or the standard that we set. But we've got to move on, and we got to move on fast. We can't allow that loss to linger into this week's preparation. We're playing a really good team in Georgia Tech, and we've got to pour all our focus and effort into finding a way to win a game this week.
Coach, the offensive struggles of going 3 games without a touchdown. Have you ever been through anything like that at all in your career, and how tough is it, and how do you remedy it?
No, not at all. I think it's been 9 quarters, exactly right, without a touchdown, and a lot of that time is there without Tyler, and we've got to be able to respond. We've had some close calls to touchdowns, to say the least, right? And then something happens in a sequence where we're down in the red zone, and we've kind of been in a funk. I don't think there's I can't hide from that, and I take that, and I've got to do a better job preparing these guys to respond to adversity. We've got to develop tough mindsets, tough kids, tough coaches, and that starts with us. It's got to show in great leadership. These kids have got to follow us as coaches and take on our mentality, and we've got to continue to push that and continue to push them over the hump. But it has not been pleasant lately, and we've got to score points ultimately. When we score points, our team plays good. It drives the energy. It drives the emotions of the team, especially when your defense is on the field and they're seeing, your offense go score. And we've got to do that. We've got to find ways to score touchdowns.
Josh, it's obviously not easy to get a team ready when you've got 3 different guys who could potentially be the quarterback. Is there a cutoff point in your mind with coach and everything where you guys decide, okay, hey, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, we got to know who the guy is so that we can get the team to run this kind of offense?
Well, there is a challenge. Unfortunately, the challenge is kind of there because of injuries, and so it's almost you never know until the last moment. I think we didn't find out about Tyler last week until literally probably about the day before the game, and so you can imagine what you're having to go through from a preparation standpoint of what's good for each player. But ultimately, whatever we ask, we're going to prepare all 3 of the quarterbacks, or try to prepare them right now. Obviously, as we're going through injuries and adversity. And I think also you're seeing the same thing up front. We're down to, 6 or 7 maybe healthy, offensive linemen. And so we're having to rotate different guys in for the what if this guy goes down, who bumps over here, who bumps over there. And so we've got some challenges as we've had all year long. We've got to continue to just find solutions and answers. And while we do that, we've got to continue to instill confidence in our players. But it has been a challenge.
How did Lawrence Seymour do?
Lawrence stepped in, and obviously, he had some good moments. He had some moments, obviously, where he continued to learn from. He's a young player. You look in the interior right now. We've got 2 freshmen starting for us on the interior offensive line, and not a lot of experience from there, and you know, guys are getting thrust into roles on the job, you know, in the game, not necessarily in the week leading up to preparation. And so everyone's just got to prepare right now. Like I said, we're down to very few options left, and everyone has to assume that they're ready to contribute in any kind of way when the opportunity comes.
Hey Josh, Jake's obviously been turning the ball over at as insane of a rate that you'll ever see in football. Have you guys ever seen that before on the practice field? And where's the disconnect coming from? And you know, why do you think that's happening?
You know, I wish I had an answer because I'd be ready to solve it. You know, but you know, the turnovers collectively as a unit just coming, you know, freakishly in games, and you know, it's you know, we're having a lot of things happen in games that don't necessarily show themselves in practice, and I don't know if it's a performance anxiety type situation where, you know, our kids are going into games and you know, the moment is catching up to them, but you know, we've got to protect the football. I don't care if it's a quarterback throwing an interception. I don't care if it's a fumble, a missed snap in the red zone, right? We can't have the things that have been haunting us all season long, and these things are they're issues because they've continued to show up, and they're things that obviously we've addressed, things that we have put as major concern, but ultimately we have to correct them. We can't keep allowing these things to happen in games.
Like that hadn't shown up in practice all through the spring and fall, and now suddenly in the games.
Just in the games, and you know, there's a lot going on in the quarterback position, right? You got new linemen, you got new people all around you. You're going into the game, and unfortunately, you know, we've made some tough turnovers there. And you know, like I told Jake, like I told him this morning, I continue to believe in him. You know, I've got to instill confidence in him. He's a young man that has had some bright moments. He's still a very young player, and that's the thing that, you know, everyone must understand. Young players do make mistakes at times. We've got to continue to grow and develop him and coach him so he can go out there and play confidently.
Missed snap in the red zone. Where was that breakdown on that play?
Well, you know what? So that's it's a tricky deal to deal with, and not to blame anyone, but obviously when there's communication happening on defense, there was defensive players obviously clapping, communicating. A lot of that comes in today's age where everyone is on somewhat of a clap cadence offensively. Defensive players are also using that to get their, you know, defenders over. If you saw the communication happening at the time, one of their defensive players was trying to get another player over to another side. Started clapping, and then the ball was snapped. And so it's a tough job on the center to hear where that clap comes from. Obviously, it's something that officials have tried to keep an eye on as far as rules enforcement. But those things happen in the game. You know, we can't sit there and point the finger or point the blame, say it's a missed call. Those things happen. We just can't allow them to happen negatively for us.
How do you keep the team kind of bought into like the offensive strategy and the plan when, you know, things haven't been going so well the last couple of weeks?
Well, you know, we gotta develop tough kids, man. And here's the deal: the buy-in within our whole program hasn't gone necessarily the way we want it. But you know, for us, it's about first and foremost, it's about developing the culture in the locker room and in the team that we're going to compete no matter who the opponent is for 60 minutes each and every week. And for those that, you know, that don't understand that, you know, there's, you know, we've got to come to grips that, you know, there's other opportunities out there. And we've got to do a great job in recruiting. I think first and foremost, when you look at it, right, it all starts in building your roster from a recruitment standpoint. Got to recruit the right type of kids, the right type of players, and the right type of mindset. And when you're talking about developing a culture, it starts there. Obviously, then it's player development and retainment. And so, you know, we've got to challenge our kids, but at the same time, we've got to buy into the culture that we want to establish here. And, you know, everyone has to be on board in that culture. And that's what it takes to build a program. We're obviously in the building process, and no one likes to go through the hard times of building. Everyone wants to show up once it's built and then obviously, you know, take credit or be a part of something that's already built. But this is no different than any other issues that we've been through in the past with other programs as far as building programs. It's going to take tough work. It's going to take tremendous effort by everyone involved in the program and ultimately leading us all in the right direction.
Will Mallory came into the game as your leading receiver, just wasn't targeted. Was it something they were doing? Obviously, tight ends taking your own.
Yeah, you know, we tried to get Will late into the red zone on a target for a touchdown. Unfortunately, we got beat on a block on the perimeter, or he would have had an easy opportunity of a walk-in touchdown. It was unfortunate because Will's a big piece of our offense, and we want to find creative ways to get him the ball. I think the game flow within the game kind of caught up to us. We wanted to target him early on. He was getting a couple double coverages and bracketed into the boundary. And we just didn't have that opportunity once things started kind of unraveling within the game. And so we've got to continue to focus on trying to allow, our best players to touch the ball, and Will's one of those guys, and we've got to find ways to get him the ball.
Coach, you decided to stay on the field again for 2 weeks in a row. Kind of what went into that decision, how you're feeling about it, and what should we expect going forward?
Personally, thinking it was going to make a difference, it obviously didn't. But it was really just to be there as a voice of confidence for our players. When adversity strikes, being able to look them in the eye, being able to get them to respond. Like I said, we have a very inexperienced and I would say a group that hasn't responded to adversity throughout the year. And so for me, the decision of going down on the field was to be that voice that could rally the troops, that could rally everyone if things started going bad. And unfortunately, we still haven't been able to respond in those situations. And so, as we continue to evaluate those things, obviously I'll make an evaluation this week as whether or not I'll be on the field or in the booth. But ultimately, we've got to develop that mindset and mentality that we've got to continue to fight. And it takes everyone's effort, and it takes selflessness. And that's the thing I think probably the most that we've got to continue to push on our team. It takes unselfish players. And we've got to have a group of men that care more about winning for Miami than they do about their own individual recognition of plays or whatever it may be. And ultimately, when we get to that point, we'll have the culture and the team that we want.
What is Jakari's understanding of your playbook and the offensive system at this point in his freshman season?
Jakari understands everything from an offensive standpoint. I think his skill set is different. I think ultimately as a coach, you've got to shape everything around someone's strengths, obviously, and their weaknesses. And when you look at Jakari, he obviously provides us a great strength and skill set in certain areas where we like to focus with him on. But he does a great job understanding conceptually. Obviously, as I've said before, he trains completely as a quarterback, goes through practice as a quarterback. And it was actually really good to see him, with a good deep ball opportunity early on in the game to kind of push the ball down the field. And that's an area, obviously, where he excels probably a little bit further in the passing game is being able to throw the ball deep. But those are other areas that we're going to continue to grow on him, continue to truly develop him in every aspect of his game.
Last question for Coach Gattis. What have you seen overall from Georgia Tech's defense?
High pressure team. He blitz about 52% of the time. It doesn't matter what personnel, and very aggressive. Obviously, they're a team that's playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They've been through adversity, obviously, with a head coaching change throughout the year, and they're playing aggressive. This last stretch, you've seen them play well at times. You've also seen them obviously have adversity and not play up to their standard. And so for us, it's about us. We've got to clean up. We've got a lot of things we've got to clean up ourselves, and a lot of things that we have to focus on ourselves. But we understand, we're going on the road. We're playing in front of I think it's a whiteout crowd for them. It's going to be a great atmosphere out of their fans. And we've got to be able to accept the adversity that happens with the crowd noise and environment, and we've got to play through it.
Jakari's obviously a young quarterback. You're potentially making his first start. That's what you guys tend to do. Jake's had some issues here. He's also a young guy. How do you prepare him for a team that blitzes that much?
Well, we've got to just first and foremost, it's got to start from. We got to find ways to keep the quarterback protected. And that starts in our protection pickup, communication, running backs, offensive line, game plan, being able to identify areas where strengths for us, where's our matchup issues. We're also starting some new offensive linemen. So that's a big factor in it all. What can we put on their plate as well? And I think ultimately when you're going into a game plan, you're trying to figure out how much can everyone handle. There's a lot of different pieces. I think the one area where we don't have as many moving parts right now is back at the receiver position. But that position is obviously affected a little bit about everything else that's going around it. And so we've got to continue to just find ways to maximize what each and every one of our players can do. But that's not individual players. That's collectively as a group. That takes the O-line, tight ends, receivers, running backs, and figuring out what they can handle and what they can do best.
All right, Coach. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, guys.
coordinator Kevin Steele. We'll jump straight into questions.
Hey, Kevin, I'll be the guinea pig here. That counter, seriously, the counter run play was obviously a big play in the game. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what was going on with that play? What adjustments maybe you tried to make, what didn't get run?
It's not real complicated. We've seen it all year. I mean, every game we've played, they've run the counter. The first thing is, obviously, you change the fronts up anyway in a game. So we did. We played the bare front against it. We played what would be called an under front against it, where the B gap bubble is open. Closed. We played an over front to it in which the B gap is open. All those are different fits. We played 41 snaps of middle field coverage, so we had a safety down in the box. Hat-wise, we had enough numbers. It wasn't a numbers issue. A couple of times we did not play the double team well. They doubled down. We had too much movement. A couple of times, at one time, we got up the field a little bit too much with the end, the edge setter or the spiller on it. But the big problem was we just didn't tackle very well. We just a lot of missed tackles in that area, a lot. I just didn't tackle him very well. Good back, but still got to tackle him.
How many times did they run it? It seemed
32.
Like, I was going to say, it seemed like
32. No, it wasn't every play because they played 70 snaps, but 32 of 70's a lot. Yep.
Has anybody ever done that before?
Yeah, remember I came up in the option game, so when you get against teams who can't throw it, they'll run the ball sometimes and run the same play a lot. Option teams back in the day ran the same play a lot. This day and age, you don't see. You see the zone play, you just don't talk about it as much because so many people run the zone play. There's times you come out of a game where they've run the zone play 17, 18, 19, 22 times. They may not have but 80 yards rushing, but they run it a lot. So, and that's their lead play. That's what he likes. And the back did a really good job. We didn't tackle very well.
Why do you think that is? What happened with the tackling? When you look at
Just didn't get them on the ground. It's fundamentals. It's coaching, and we've improved tackling very, considerably. Not where we want to be. I don't know that it ever is going to get where we want it to be in this day and age, just simply because of the practice time and the way you have to practice. But that's not making an excuse. That's just a fact. When you practice where you don't put anybody on the ground past August except on Saturday, and you're trying to teach something like that, you're not teaching it to its fullest extent. And that's something that as coaches, it's hard, but that's our job. Our job is to make sure we are a good tackling team, and we emphasize it. We have plenty of drills set up for it. We'll have plenty more this week, I'll promise you. But and then the other thing, hats off. He was a good running back.
Coach, I got the numbers right today.
Good for you. What you got?
You gave up 6 big plays against Florida State, and during this 4-game home winning streak, you gave up 19 plays,
Right.
20 yards or more, with 8 of those plays going for over 40 yards.
That's where the crux is right there. Those 8 plays are the key. Yeah.
So what do you attest to that, and how do you get that fixed?
Well, if it was one thing, it would be an easy answer. It really would be. And you're exactly right. It's unacceptable. Like I told you, it's on me. One of those 8 was a 5-yard missed tackle, backside leverage, fell down. One of those plays was a miscommunication on an empty check, and so that was one of them. One of them was just a technique guy. The guy just technique at the line of scrimmage, and he got beat at technique. The other one, I hate to say this, but one of those was just, hey, hats off to him. It's a great play. Then I think the other night we had an issue where actually that was supposed to be double coverage, and so it wasn't egregious in that he was not relatively where he was supposed to be, but not totally where he was supposed to be. So, my answer to that is it would be a whole lot easier if you could say, okay, we've got a player that we have to help in coverage, but that's not the case. It would be very easy to say, okay, we don't play this coverage very well. We need to play this coverage more. That's not the case. They're all different. There's not one single one of those you're talking about, those 8 you're talking about that are, like you said, just, they're unacceptable. And it's on me, like I told you last week. And I'm glad you got the numbers, by the way. Now we're on the same page. They're not the same. And that makes it really, really hard because you fix something over here and you got a hole over here. And so it's just continue to work. Confidence, teaching, coaching, all those things put together.
When the team is able to run counter 30, almost half their offensive plays, how do you kind of keep the defense from getting dispirited? I mean, it may have happened Saturday, but how do you get them back up for this week's game?
Well, like I've told you before, to this point, and we fully expect it. I mean, they came to work yesterday with a good attitude. We've not had that issue. They've been resilient in that fact. But at some point in time, we've got to get this thing turned to where we're not talking about it every 2 or 3 weeks. That's my responsibility, and you got to keep doing it. But it's really just confidence, and you got to work now. You got to work. Coach talks about that all the time. And these guys have been willing to work, but it's just putting the pieces together.
Anything else for Coach Steele?
It seems like, not to try to call anyone now, it seems like James Williams had a bit of a rough game on Saturday. Obviously, he has a ton of talent. Where do you want to see him kind of improve or work on next, remainder of the season, I guess?
Well, I mean, it's just like we don't talk specifically about guys. I just don't do that. You know that. But when you're a safety and you're part of the run game, I mean, that's a hard day's work now. It gets frustrating, particularly if there's success on the other side. But it was not James Williams' fault by any stretch of the imagination. So we've got a lot of things to work on. And James is the kind of guy, he's a tough guy. He's hard-nosed. Football's important. He loves the University of Miami. He comes to work every day. Sometimes some of the greatest hitters in the world have had days where they struck out, and it is just the way it is. I've seen that little quote sometimes where all the game-winning shots Michael Jordan have hit, but then there's another number of how many he missed. It's, sometimes the great ones have bad days.
You're having troubles with consistency. I know you don't want to talk individuals, but there are certain guys that look like All-Americans, say a week or two ago against Virginia.
I think this, and that's an easy question to answer. This is not checkers. The board is not painted exactly the same all the time and you move square to square. That's not the way it works. And there's no play that ever looks the same defensively. Even those counters, sometimes the guy's pulling a little wider, sometimes a little tighter, sometimes he's a little high on it. Sometimes the thing came downhill, sometimes it was a little wider, sometimes it bounced. So you got to be real careful of saying, well, this guy had a bad day this week and played really good last week. Well, what did they run against him? What was he asked to do? People have strengths, people have weaknesses. So that's hard to rationalize defensively just because of the way offensive attacked you.
Great players find a way to get to the point where they can do it every week, no matter what is taking place.
The ones that have done it for a long time. I mean, a long time. Where that's I wouldn't say great players. I've been around some really, what you would say, guys who didn't go on and play in the NFL 8, 9, 10 years, didn't make it in the NFL, but they had a lot of experience in what they were doing.
Coach, Georgia Tech's offense, talk about that a little bit.
Right. Well, they've had a little quarterback change, but offensively, Chip Long, their offensive play caller, he's been the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. He's very much like the 3 teams that we played in a row now, offensively, in terms of style. Virginia Tech, Virginia, and Florida State, a lot of similarities in what they did, and a lot. He's kind of off of that. So, but the quarterback change has been a little bit different because they're a little bit different styles.
Anything else for Coach Steele?
Oh, y'all got it. I got one I was asking off camera, so.
Thanks, guys.
Non-opponent.
Is that code? I have